November 6, Papa Golf, Quebec.
N6PGQ Bob and KP4MD Carol, and me, KN6QNJ. Anybody else joining us tonight?
Into 6 Delta Golf, Joel in Florence.
AI6DG, good evening, Joel. Anybody else want to join us tonight? All right, Bob, you're first in 6PGQ. Are you ready to share an image?
Well, if everything works well, I am. This is PD 120. N6PGQ.
Thanks, Bob. I got a good copy here. I'll ask Carol to comment if you're ready, Carol, KP4MG. Okay. Carol, why don't I'll ask Joel to comment, and then we'll come back to you. Go ahead, AI6DG. Also, WP2N is watching tonight on YouTube as well as N6WLM. So good evening, Craig and Bill. All right, Joel, AI6DG, go ahead.
Well, it looks like we're at a post office or a P.O. box depot someplace, because it looks like it's a whole bunch of doors with keyholes and numbers on the doors that are about letter size, except for some that are on the lower right that look to be about 3 boxes wide. I don't know. I'm not sure what they look like in a post office. I don't know if it's post office or one of the drop stations you find around in town. Back to net, AI6DG.
Thanks, Joel. I have a feeling this is part of Bob's analog theme. Carol, KP4MD.
Yeah, this is KP4MD, and I got everything connected now. Audio is streaming good as well as video. And yeah, I recognize I go to my post office regularly also to pick up the mail from my box also. So that's exactly what it looks like. Over.
Copy. Bob, by the way, I got, it's kind of hard to tell because of the lightness of the post office box doors. I have a few pops in there. It's really good transmission, though. Bob, tell us what's on your mind with regard to the mailboxes.
Well, you know, when the little bing goes off and it says you've got mail, you grab your key and you run to the post office, and this is a USPS post office box wall, and you put your key in the door and open it up, and what the heck, you've got mail. This is where I get my mail. The excuse me, mailbox in front of my house either it gets left open and the mail gets soaked, or people come around at the end of the month, the beginning of the month, and help themselves to your mail. So I've had this mailbox for, probably about 35 years, and this is the second post office building that it's been in. Price went from about $9 a year to now almost $90 a year, but it's been quite a few years. So I doubt if anybody will have any questions, but there it is.
N6WLM Bill on YouTube says that he just got a message that they're raising the prices. So if you renew now, maybe you can avoid the price hike.
Yeah, unfortunately mine expires in about May, so I'll have to ask them and see if I can renew early. Who knows?
Thanks, Bob. And again, this was also part of your analog theme, right?
Oh, absolutely. I'll probably run out of things to send, but I'm still trying to live in an analog world, but I'm gradually breaking out of my box, N6PGQ.
I think that was a clever pun, breaking out of your box. Okay, KP4MD, this is KN6QNJ. Carol, it's your turn if you're ready to share an image.
Okay, this is going to be PD120.
afternoon, Carol. I have a lot of pixel pops, but I really like the blue and the black. And I assume that's your house in the middle of the picture, Joel, AI6DG.
Yeah, I'm just looking at all of that, trying to figure out what it all is. I'm wondering if this is your chrono thingamabopper that you've got running on a Pi and displayed on a TV or maybe a computer screen. Because I noticed the map and the gray line nighttime, daytime thing going across, but obviously it's also putting out spots. See, I'm not sure if they're what you've heard or what you've who's heard you. But we've got lots of interesting little stats. I see a little graph up on the top middle. I wonder if that's propagation. Live spots, so maybe different colors for different bands and how many spots there were there on that band. So bottom line, this is probably a DXer's heaven, and he's watching this all the time, waiting for that opening to happen, and then hopping on the radio to go grab that DX on that band. Back to net, AI6DG.
Thanks. Joel, Bob, N6PGQ.
Well, it's been described pretty well. I can't read all the different things up in the upper right-hand corner in the different colors. It probably is a key to what we're seeing in the middle. I don't know if this is a whisper report from Carol's QTH, because it's all centered. It says there at CM98, which is our area, and it was done at 2000 at January 11th, and so it may be probably centered on Carol's house, and I'm going to wait and see what she has to say about it. You can see barely in the right-hand lower corner the different portions of Africa. They are in the sun, and they're in different colors, so that's probably the different countries that are there. And the rest of the world seems to be in darkness, so you can't tell the countries that are there. The one that's interesting is the dotted line that goes out into the Atlantic Ocean below Greenland. So anyway, it's going to be interesting to find out. N6PGQ.
Thanks, Bob. Carol, is this like a whisper report? I'm not that familiar with it, but tell us about this.
Yeah, this is KP4MD. This is a screen capture of the program called HamClock. It's similar to Geochron. It isn't as large. I know the Geochron is where they have a really large screen monitor with this software running on it. The Geochron, they have one over at HRO, and I think it runs for like $300 or $400. It's a pretty expensive thing that takes up a lot of real estate up on your wall. But this is actually a freeware that does some of the similar type of functions, and it runs on a Raspberry Pi. I think you could run it on any Linux machine. I don't know if they have a version for it for Windows, but it's a freeware, and it's customizable. The panes, there's actually 3 panes on the upper part. I clipped off the rightmost pane to get it to squeeze into this 4:3 aspect ratio picture to send on SSTV. Let me drop this a moment. Okay, yeah, and I did take this, I snapped this shot just at 8 p.m. tonight. That's why it's showing 0400 UTC Thursday, and right under my call. And below that, it has a DE, and then it has 2000, which is 8 p.m. local time, and it has a CM98, which is centered on my location. And then down below that is DX, which actually is the location of my vacation QTH over in the Caribbean. and I just have that. That's the green circle. If you look in the center of the map, you'll see that green circle. That's centered right on San Juan. And down at the very bottom, where it says DX there, it has 3573 mile distance, and it's the direction of 97 degrees if you wanted to point directly at that. The pane in the center top there is the trend of the solar flux, and the current solar flux was 195. It's darn high, isn't it? And to the right of that, that box in the right upper right-hand corner, live spots. Those are whisper spots that I am decoding and uploading, all from 160 through 10 meters. And it has all of the numbers of spots that have been decoded in the past hour. All of the traces that you're seeing on the map are all of those whisper spots from my to my location that were decoded within the last hour. That could be set for any period of time from 5 minutes up to 24 hours. And it's a pretty nifty thing. I have it running on a Pi. Let me just drop it one more moment. Yeah, it's running on a Raspberry Pi 3 on my local network here. And I can bring it up on any computer through my Wi-Fi here on the network. It's got a web server, so I just type in the local IP address and it pops up on the screen. I could put it on my big screen TV in the living room if I want to. And it's customizable. Those panels up in the top that could be set for anything to do with solar flux, K-index. You can have your local weather or distant location weather. Many different solar weather indices could be put up there as well as pictures of the sun and the sunspots. So it's awesome, awesome good for a piece of freeware. It's called HamClock. Back to Nets, KP4MD.
Thanks, Carol. Wow, that's really cool, particularly for freeware. I want to say hello to Andy, 2 Echo 0 Romeo Echo Echo, who has tuned in on YouTube from England, and Greg, November 6 Golf Mike Lima, who's I think a relatively new ham radio operator. Good evening, Greg. Carol, can you repeat the name of the software program again? Did you say Ham Spot?
No, it's called HamClock. HamClock, and what I'll do is I'll type in the chat window the URL for that program, so you can see where to download it if you're interested. Back to you is KP4MD.
KP4MD, N6QNJ. That's really very interesting. Any questions for Carol before we move on to the next image? All right, Joel, AR6DG. Sounds good.
PD 120.
Thanks, Joel. AR6DG, KN6QNJ. Well, it's very interesting. As this was coming in, I think I know where this is. I think we've had other pictures from this area. In the middle right, it almost looks like the silhouette of a submerged submarine, but I know that's not what it is. Bob, N6PGQ, go ahead.
Yeah, either that or it looks like a tank driving along there. I think we've seen this area before. I'm going to throw out a guess that it's Niagara Falls again, and in this time, it looks like there's an awful lot of ice and maybe some snow. The contrast in the picture is not very good. You can see the probably sunrise maybe on the right side, and the tall building that looks kind of like a Space Needle, only not. So it looks like Niagara, looks like Niagara Falls in the winter. Had to sneeze. N6PGQ.
Gesundheit. Carol, KP4MD.
Yeah, this is KP4MD. Yeah, it looks Niagara Falls. A lot of the mist coming up from the falls, perhaps forming some kind of a cloud. I think there is a meteorological name for that kind of cloud that forms near waterfalls. Is that a cataractiform type of cloud, something like that? Some frozen spray on the in the foreground there on that piece of ground in the foreground, and yeah, there's something that looks like a Space Needle there on the right side. A lot of snow and there on the right side in the distance. I don't know. Is this all one picture? Is this something that's been like a collage that's been photoshopped together? Can't say for sure, but interesting. Back to Nets, KP4MD.
KP4MD. Okay, Joel, AI6DG, what are we looking at? Also, Andy from England says, fantastic picture on YouTube.
So this is largely the same photo as I think the one I sent last week, only it's obviously a different season since we've got all the snow and ice, and it's a little earlier in the evening since the sun, while still down, there's still a lot of light in the sky. The previous one it was completely dark with just a little bit of illumination in the sky. But yes, very cold, lots of snow and ice. Niagara Falls is on an escarpment of a body of water that they call the Niagara River that goes between Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. And most of that's a gentle slope, except for right here where there's the escarpment, the water drops. I don't remember what the number is, but it's a significant distance. So in winter you have a lot of ice flowing down the river, and it comes out of Lake Erie and the river and goes over the falls, and a lot of it collects in the gorge underneath and then freezes up. So you have this ice bridge that forms. So most of that white on the center and to the right is a collection of frozen ice that's either developed there or flowed downstream and then froze again. And yeah, that thing on the right does kind of look like a tank, but that's a little bit of open water that probably will freeze over eventually. Or this is the end of the season and it's starting to thaw. I'm not sure when this was taken. Let me let it drop. And you mentioned the mist. That mist you can see for miles. There's so much water going over the falls. It creates a significant amount of wind and a lot of mist, and it just goes up, for some cases, hundreds of feet up into the air. Not only can you hear the falls from a long ways away, you can see the mist from the falls from a long ways away. And in winter, part of the problem is that liquid water then blows and freezes onto things, like lamp posts. I've got a picture somewhere of a light post on the Canadian side with these little streamers of ice going off at side angles. let's see here. Okay, another thing is there's a lot of history in this area. It was very early in electrical generation, heavy industry, electrical power distribution. There's actually a statue of Tesla in the area in memory of all of the work I guess he did related to things in history in the area. And even in modern days, there's two major modern era power plants, one on the Canadian side and one on the American side. Let it drop. What both sides do is they have these water intakes that draw large amounts of water out of the river, and they, through pipes and canals, take them to reservoirs, one intake and one reservoir on the American and one on the Canadian, and they can control the water coming out of that reservoir, and they feed it into power plants, and they use the drop from 100 feet, 200 feet, whatever the drop is, down into the gorge to generate power. So there's significant amounts of power being generated. So, and they divert so much water, the water level in the gorge can actually significantly, it's multiple feet, go up and down, depending upon whether they start the diversion or end the diversion. Got to be careful down there sometimes. But I have a very strong memory of late one winter night going out to one of these intakes on the American side and looking across the river, and it was just completely covered in blocks and pieces of ice. And there was the strangest little tinkle from all the little ice crystals hitting each other and breaking as all of these chunks of ice were floating by. And not clonks or the sound of big clonks, pieces of ice hitting each other, little tinkles from all the ice crystals. Enough time. Thanks for listening. Back to net, AI6DG.
It's really interesting, Joel. November 6th, Whiskey Lima Mike, Bill, who's been watching, said that he had a great time taking the power station tour. So, I've never been there. I know my parents had their honeymoon there in the late 1950s, but the history is very interesting. Bill also added they divert 50 to 75% of the water to generate power. So that's a lot of water. And Carol identified the name of that cloud. Carol, I'll let you try to pronounce that word. KB4MG, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say that's Cataractogenitus cloud. How about that? And that's something I learned just recently. Over.
Copy. Yeah, very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Any questions for Joel before I send an image? All right. Well, I actually selected two images for tonight. One is more modern themed than the other, but sticking with the spirit of analog, I'm going to transmit the analog picture, so stand by. N6PGQ. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I like the picture. Well, we'll start off in the right-hand corner. It looks like the back of a wooden chair. And then the main subject looks like a really cute dog who is getting the day's news by osmosis. He's leaning on the top newspaper that is, of course, upside down with a picture on it. But I think he's choosing a whole bunch of news to take in all at once. N6PGQ.
Carol, KP4MD, go ahead.
Very good picture. Very solid. Maybe just about 2 or 3 pixel pops anywhere. Nice dog. I guess the back of the dog is laying on top of a couch that's facing towards what looks like I don't know if that's a television or a computer monitor on the back wall. It looks like, if not a window, it looks like some kind of a monitor perhaps. And the dog has one of its paws and its chin up on top of a pile of newspapers on the top of a table. Nice wooden table there. Beautiful, really pretty picture. Back to you, over.
Thanks, Carol. Joel, go ahead.
Yeah, a lot of it's already been said. Very cute dog, halfway between the back of a couch and a table that looks like it's probably pushed up against the couch. Probably a TV in the background, so we're probably like in a living room, kitchen nook or something, and this looks to be the reading nook, the reading table, and the dog's joining you for company, and good company for good reading. Back to net, VI6DG.
Yes, that is Pepper. She's about 9.5 years old. She's not supposed to get on the table, so she sort of comes up off the back of the couch, like Bob described, and when there's something that looks delicious, that is her inspiration. It's not that she's trying to read the daily news, which is too bad, but that would be amazing. All right, we're about halfway through. I could send another picture that is more modern. Does anybody have another picture they'd like to send? All right, well, if you'll indulge me, just because it's only 9:35, I'm going to send one more photo. Stand by. Joel, AI6DG, I'll start with you.
So it looks like we're on a bench surface. We have a nice little speckled, I don't know if it's formica or granite or what surface on the bottom. And behind that we've got a white pegboard with some, can't really see that there's much on the pegboard, but I do see that there's a few implements. One to the left and a couple to the right. We've got a real short, small little shelf. It's probably only 3 or 4 inches tall and 18 inches wide or so. And below it on the right, we've got a PowerWorks power supply with a microphone in front of that, and some wires shoved in back to the left of that on the left side of the shelf. Some cabling in both probably audio control or power in front of the shelf to the left of the microphone. Probably a coiled section of cabling for the microphone. On top of the shelf, on the left, a little box with some air vents on top of it. It says ICOM on the front. We've got 2 cables plugged in. And to the right of that, we've got a display head that says ICOM ID 5100A. So I'm assuming those two go together. The thing on the left, I don't really associate it as being the radio block that a head would go into. I don't see heat sinks. There might be a heat fan in back. I wouldn't expect there to be vents like that, and I would expect there to be a big massive heat sink, but maybe the picture implies otherwise, so I must be wrong. Back to net, the I6DG.
This is N6QNJ. Thanks, Joel. Bob, N6PGQ.
Well, it has a brand new radio. Those are supposed to be one of the best 2-meter 70-centimeter radios that ICOM makes. They've got Bluetooth connectivity and all that kind of good stuff. The description's been made pretty well. I can't think of much else to talk about except the pegboards on the back seem to have tools that are hung on the right and a loop ready to hang a tool on the left side near the top. Kind of looks like the back of my workbench where you'd put wrenches and screwdrivers and things like that, but this looks like it's been kept a little bit prettier than the back of my pegboard. Nice rig. Wonder if it's going to go into a car. N6PGQ.
Thanks, Bob. KP4MD. Carol.
Okay, yeah, this is KP4MD. Very good picture. Very few pixel pops, if any. I'm saying that ID 5100A control head on the right probably goes with that radio that's on the left of it there. Because if you look very closely, no, I'm not for sure if you could see a little bit of a cooling fan, just the housing of a cooling fan hanging off the back of that. So I'm thinking that maybe is the actual radio that's connected to that control head. And yep, the PowerWorks power supply, I could see the coiled DC power cable to the left of that there on the tabletop that's under the radio. And that riser, that little monitor riser, I've got one exactly like it. I got it off Amazon, and I use it. I think I've actually sent a picture on here once with mine. It has my HTs on top of it, as well as my Anytone GMRS radio on there. And I have a little scanner underneath and a little space underneath it. The little Bearcat scanner just slips right under there. So that's a pretty nifty little riser. I think it was only like 12 or 13 bucks on Amazon. It's pretty neat. I see the microphone. It has a bunch of buttons. I guess has to do with all the different functions. And then in the foreground, to the left of that microphone, there's something with a clip-on ferrite. I wonder if that's some kind of an interface that is plugged into there. Look, I see a cable plugged into that. So back to Nets, KP4MD.
Thanks, Carol. Well, you're all right. The thing that I was wondering if you'd notice is that on the screen below ID 5100A, there's a bunch of letters and numbers along the bottom. And this was a project. I bought this radio used, and I don't know how old it is, but the firmware had never been upgraded. So I went to HRO today to buy the data cable. And then, Carol, that's what you were identifying in the lower left. ICOM sells their own cables, which are probably more expensive than they should be, but I tried other cables and couldn't get the firmware upgrade to work. So what this is me taking a picture of the finished firmware upgrade. The radio did not blow up. It actually works. It is a pretty nice radio. It's my garage radio. I think I have used it for Aries deployments, and I'm thinking of building a box or something to take it out. So anyway, I wanted to show the contrast between the analog newspaper and the digital radio. Any questions? All right, anybody want to send another picture before we end tonight?
Comment N6PGQ.
Go ahead, Bob.
Well, this may have been the radio you talked to me on. The audio on it sounds really good. I have a garage radio, but it sure isn't that fancy. So what are you using for a garage radio antenna?
And I thank you for the radio report. Yes, you got right back to me earlier this evening when I finished it up. And Bill online says that he just got this himself, got one of these himself. I'm using a Comet mag mount antenna that I put on the top of the fence above the garbage cans. Any other comments or questions before I close the net?
Got another photo I can send.
Go ahead, Joel. AR6DG. Go ahead.
8120. Spot if you recognize anyone in the photo.
I do not recognize anybody in this photo. Carol, KP4MD.
Wow, I don't know anybody in this that I can think of. Back to you, KP from D. By the way, it's black and white and came through very well.
Thanks, Carol. Yeah, I just have a few pops, but it came through nicely. Bob, N6PGQ.
Well, I don't recognize anybody either. I'm looking in the back right corner, and the door does not appear to be a type of a door you would have in Northern California, although I could be totally wrong. And then you've got one lucky boy in the lower right-hand corner that got to sit down, and the rest of the people are all standing or kneeling. And so this may have been somebody's, I don't know, fourth grade class or something like that, with the proud teacher on the left and all the kids having a good time getting their picture taken. They're all smiling, so this can't be taken real recently. N6PGQ.
Joel, are you in this photo, AS6DG?
Negative. This is a photo that was posted to the Yosemite National Park Facebook page. In the caption or text that came with it, in this undated photo, Shirley Temple, left of the rocking chair, celebrates her birthday inside the Rangers Club with local Yosemite children.
I never would have gotten that. Although the Yosemite architecture, maybe, I guess. Oh, that's interesting. Well, I'm not sure if I recognize her. Just to the left of with the dark hair.
And if you once you know that, you can kind of see that there's an arrangement of people standing with her kind of at the center.
I'd be interested in what Bob and Carol think. It's very interesting, and the quality of the photo in terms of the transmission is very good. Very good. Any other comments or questions for Joel? All right, to N6WLM online, I misspoke. He did not get an Icon 5100, but he did buy a used FT857, and he had not thought about updating the firmware. Bill, I want to make sure the radios stay current, but that's just my own compulsion. I don't think you have to. But it had been so many years. This radio that I bought was so old that I knew it could benefit from it. I don't know if Bob, Joel, or Carol have any advice on firmware upgrades.
Oh, I'll give you my 3 cents worth. I've gotten old computers on my desk that when they reach the end of their life, you better not go too far in updating the software, or it slows them down and it tries to run software that it really shouldn't. So you should update the whole computer and leave the old one to operate old software and connect to old radios and things like that. Some of the new radios, especially the Flexes and the Elecrafts and the new Yacom things, do have software updates since they're SDR radios, and those are ones that you probably would want to update. I know the Elecraft radios always keep dropping a new feature in or two, fixing filters and everything else with each update. So that's something that you would probably want to do. But if it's a 2-meter 440 radio and it's working, what more can you do? I mean, you're going to connect to a repeater. You can do that with a radio made in the 80s, N6 PGQ.
Thanks, Bob. Joel or Carol? Go ahead.
Be very careful. Take your time. Read the instructions. Make sure you do it right. The newer equipment, it's a lot harder to brick a device doing a firmware or BIOS update, but it probably can still happen. I've only once bricked a piece of equipment, an ISDN router. I forget what I did wrong. I might have grabbed and tried to image it with the wrong image. Consider the idea or possibility of, well, there's two ways you can go. You can either always update the latest so that you're at the latest, greatest, and a little more cautious approach is to only do it when you have a problem and the update fixes it, or if there's some major feature that you really can't do without. Back to NET EI6TG.
That's all good advice. I knew on the 5100 that they had fixed the fan runs a lot in that little box that we were looking at on the left, and they have fixed that in the update, plus a lot of other things related to the built-in GPS and the Bluetooth and all that stuff. So over the years, and it's a D-Star radio, which is, I use Fusion, but I've not used D-Star, so I'll eventually learn how to do that. All right, well, we are approaching 10 p.m., so I'm going to close the net. Thanks to all who participated in tonight's Slow Scan TV Net. We hope to see you again next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The net is officially closed at 9:57 p.m. This is James, KN6QNJ, wishing all of you a good evening.